Hi, my name is Daudi Mugabi and this is Business Mike episode 36. On today's show, we're going to review 2015 and highlight some of the key takeaway messages that the entrepreneurs I interviewed shared with us throughout the course of the year. All this and more next on Business Mike. Let's start the review by looking at the fashion industry. Uganda is one of the countries whose fashion industry has been steadily growing over the past few years. I managed to interview exceptional entrepreneurs in the fashion industry, particularly in Uganda. Here are some 3 inspirational women entrepreneurs who gave us an insight into the fashion industry in Uganda. Patricia Otoa from OP Designs, Nuba Elamin from Bukisi Rooks, and Nunu Mujenyi from Bold, Kampala. With regards to your business, do you have any role models that inspired you to do this or people you look up to?
Yes. The number one role model I look up to is my late father. He was an ambassador to Germany from Uganda. And he always told me one thing. As long as you're organized, you can do anything in the world. So that just kept driving me, and building on me. So what is important is always to be organized. Put your notes together. I have a meeting at this time. Be there at that time. No matter how small it is, it always adds to an element that will build you. Much as you don't see it.
Yeah.
But as long as you're organized, you can do anything.
True.
Yeah.
True.
What makes us different is our interaction between the clients, which is really important for us. So when you come to OP as a client, you basically want to come back the next day and another day because you feel like you're coming home. They're going to advise you on whatever you want to wear based on your body type. So we are not just selling. You come in here and you say you want a dress that looks like for Lady Gaga with, a high to the low and the what. We'll tell you, yes, that dress is beautiful. However, we don't think it will work for you.
Right.
This is what we think will work for you, and this is the reason why we think it will work for you. Yeah? So it's not all about selling. It's not all about... I think it's the extra mile we go to provide a service based on also what we think is, good for the client. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you, Tetsi and Lynn, have been in business for just over a year, I believe.
Yes.
Having started your own business, what are some of the roles or responsibilities that you've had to take on that caught you by surprise? Some of the things you find yourself doing now that you never imagined you'd be doing?
Let me speak for myself, first of all, because I don't want to speak for the other girls. But finance, money, I hate numbers. And I never thought that in my wildest dreams I'd have to sit down with an Excel sheet and try and figure out, if this makes sense. I never thought I would do that. My background is in international development. I always envisioned myself being in somewhere like Gulu and working on a, project with humanitarian organizations. So I never thought I'll do numbers. So that's definitely something that caught me by surprise.
One thing I've noticed, having interviewed 10 other guests, is that the accounting bit of it is something that always comes up. Yes.
Yeah, I think I heard one of your guests saying something similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
So based on that, what advice would you give someone? So someone could be listening right now who wants to start their own business. As far as the accounting bit goes, what can they do to prepare themselves for their business?
Read. Literally get all the books you can and start going through them and just get the basics and get the foundation. If numbers are not your thing, right, you don't have to know the nitty-gritty. You can get an accountant to do that, but you have to know the basics. You have to know the simple things. What's your break-even point? What are your margins? Things like that. And I mean, these days with the internet and the resources that we have, you can do that. I personally went and took a course with the Business Development Center, an entrepreneurship course, for the reason that I wanted to make sure that I understood the numbers. Because some people, you can read, but then it doesn't really sink in. You want someone to explain it to you. So that really helped me. So I did that. So it's an option as well.
So now, since you started the company with that goal in mind, how has the industry changed? For instance, now that you've had all these brands under one roof, How has that had an effect on the consumerism of fashion and the designers themselves? What impact has it had?
I've seen a huge difference in the attitude towards locally made products. And I've said this so many times, like a broken record, but at the beginning, I would say one of our biggest problems was convincing locals, I'm even going to specifically say Ugandans, to buy Ugandan-made products.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with products. As soon as you hear something is made locally, then you're going to second guess the quality, where is it from, is it going to last? I'd rather get things from abroad. So there was no faith in ourselves. So I would say our concept is purely based on pushing things that are made locally. We've now since expanded to brands that are outside of Uganda, but still we're physically located in Uganda. So I felt like in the beginning there was a reluctance to buy things made locally. Why would you buy something made locally when you can get something made, in outside countries where it's considered to be, of better quality, which is not necessarily the case. So I do recognize that in some areas there is a lack. We're still lacking quality control, but I see that on that aspect, the designers have grown, and on the consumer aspect side of things, people are now more willing to buy things made locally. People are now more intrigued by things that are made locally. People are now more, who made this? What's your story? People are now more, they want to support, their attitude has changed. They want to support themselves, their industry, their designers. People are now proud. They're seeing things are happening. People are moving.
We even had a fashion week not too long ago.
We had our first fashion week. That was very exciting. Fantastic production. That was a huge milestone for us. Just the other day, Lupita Nyong'o wore a Quest dress. This is a Ugandan brand made in Uganda. Lupita Nyong'o is huge. So these are milestones that I think are making it. People are watching and taking note and be like, starting to gain some sort of faith in ourselves.
One of the recurring themes from the entrepreneurs throughout the year was mentorship. Here is Agaba Tumusime, Liz Simpson, and Jordan Agoli talking about mentorship. I've heard very many times that it's very important to have a mentor, be it a health mentor or a business mentor. How important is it to have someone that's been there and done that versus, say, Googling whatever it is you want to do or specialize in?
I think for a person who wants to be a high achiever in life, having a mentor is an absolute necessity, because there are going to be several instances that you will face circumstances that you just are not familiar with, and you do not know what to do. You don't have the answer. You can't figure it out. And who better to ask for advice than a person who's walked that path before you? And that mentor may not necessarily be somebody who's in the specific field or industry that you want to work in, but somebody who has demonstrated that through their own hard work and achievement, that they have a story that they can share with you, some insights that they can share with you.
Oh, a mentor is everything. A mentor is how you move forward. A mentor is someone that guides you throughout life. A mentor for me is the reason I'm in the position that I am today. Jeff Hopek was and is my mentor, and he's now the guy that I work for and someone that I care very deeply about. But mentors are people that help you not make the same mistakes that they did, and help you make better decisions. And I would say that anyone and everyone needs a mentor in their life, not just in business, but in personal relationships, in finance, in working out. And I have mentors. I have mentors in karate. I have mentors in working out. I have mentors in my relationships, mentors in business, mentors in finance, everything. And that's because people forget this one simple fact, that if you're 50 years old and I'm 20 years old, that means you have 30 more years of experience on me. And you have already made decisions that I'm going to make, and you probably know the outcome. So we should probably listen to people. But the one catch is, make sure that you have a qualified mentor. So, for example, let's use relationships. I've had my girlfriend for almost 5 years. If someone is giving me advice about a relationship, I just look and I say, okay, are they married? Do they have a successful marriage? Do they have a marriage I would want to have? And if someone's divorced and giving me advice about how to have a good relationship, I'm probably not going to listen as much, because their relationship didn't work out. But if they have a healthy marriage that I love, then I'll be listening to them. The same way in business, if they have done well in their industry and they're giving me advice, I will be more prone to listen.
Psychologically, what did it take for you to leave the so-called safety net of a regular paycheck to go ahead and venture into your own business?
Sure, it was definitely a process. It's completely taking one hat off and putting another hat on, if you will. Psychologically, some of the things that it took, one was completely shifting my circle. I really had to immerse myself in the world of entrepreneurship. I was looking at the past year. In the past year, I've read over 80 books. I've had 12 coaches and 2 mentors, and I've gone on 8 retreats and conferences. So when we talk about psychologically, it's truly a mental game. You have to commit to renewing your mind and shifting your mindset. So for me, all of my coaches were $1 million coaches who are millionaires, whether it's speaking or retreats or coaches. And it created a new normal in my mind. So I really immersed myself in the world. And now it's really, like, for me now, working a 9-to-5 is just so unnatural to me because I completely shifted my mindset. So that's one of the big things I would say is if you're interested in it, start reading about it, start finding people who are successful entrepreneurs who you can listen to, learn from, go to events where there's entrepreneurs. Definitely continue to listen to podcasts like this where interviews are being done with entrepreneurs so that it creates a new reality in your mind.
Apart from mentorship, there was a lot more advice shared by the various entrepreneurs on the show. Here are some of the best outtakes from the year 2015. So for anyone out there who's Ugandan or African that wants to do what you're doing, motivational speaking, how do you look for these partners? Do you Google motivational speaker Uganda or Kenya, whatever? Do you get a contact inside companies and ask them who's spoken before? What's their contact? How do you find these people?
I'll tell you, a company will come up with a need, has a particular need, which is what you actually want to address. So a company has a particular need, right? So what you've said is very, very fundamental. Within that company, there's a person who knows what exactly the company needs. Yeah. And now they want it delivered. A person who's very much familiar with the culture of that company, who is very much familiar with the mindset of the people in that company, right? Which is what I've been doing. So I'll go to that particular person and I'll talk to them and ask, look here, here's what I want to do for you. Yeah? Here's my proposal. Yeah? Who do you think would be best to partner with now? Right? So I've found that to be extremely useful because so they will tell you, for instance, one of them told me about a certain professor who lives in Nairobi, right? So I had to go and hunt this professor down and tell him, look here, there's this proposal, his work that's coming up, can we partner? And this professor was very much willing. And this is a guy who's actually done work with them. Right. So he then comes in, not as part of the company, but really as a strategic alliance. So then you go and talk to them. Here's the work I have to do. Who can I partner with? They give you an idea. But even then, if you cannot find anyone in that particular, so obviously there's the internet. You just Google and find out which particular person is an authority in that area. And as long as it involves money, they are usually willing to partner with you.
Right. And how crucial as an artist is branding?
It's very crucial. I think you see, while the music is great, I think what you would want to do as an artist, have a brand that is louder than the music. So when you don't have a song in like 2 months while you're recording, your brand is still bright enough for people to say that, yeah, that's the guy. Branding is extremely important. We've seen it with people like Juliana and Irene Namubiru and Bebe Cool and all these people. Like, they don't have to have a song every month. Their brand is big enough for them to go and command and say, I want to the corporates and say, I want 100 million for this event I'm putting together. And the corporates will back it because they trust in that brand. So branding is very, very crucial. I would say you want to have the brand and the music on the same high. Like, you want to have them top notch all the time.
One of the challenges small business owners have is when they start their business, they normally tend to ask their friends and family if it's a good idea, and majority of the time they'll say, oh yeah, it's brilliant, and it might not be in actual sense. So from your experience, what's the best place to find out, to get constructive feedback on whether your idea is valid or not?
I think the best place to get really good feedback is actually to start selling your product, but on a very small scale and perhaps with prototypes, and test the market and get people to actually pay for the product, and then see whether people will part with their cash for your product. And maybe you'll need to change the packaging a little bit. And you could, if you're product based, you could start that through doing markets or selling at school fairs if that's the right market for you, and just trying like little bits before you start investing money, and just seeing whether people actually part with cash.
How do you write down a business plan? And by that I mean, what goes into the business plan? Because most people just start a business, they have a passion. I want to do this. I'll need probably this much, and they just start. They don't have a paper where they've written down what they'll achieve and by what time. So do you have a business plan? What advice would you give people? Like, what should be on that paper, on that business plan?
I think in terms of the business plan, because it's such a fundamental thing, A, you need to have it, but B, pay someone to do your business, to help you with your business plan, especially if you're not good at that, because not everyone is. You might have an idea, but someone is so much better at it in terms of putting it on paper and helping you with your projections, because that actually matters. So pay someone or partner with someone who is actually good at that, because if they're good at that, most likely they'll be good at accounts, financing, maybe legal, etc. Who knows? So you can partner with someone who maybe that's their strength. Your strength is in terms of executing the business. And then there you've A, cut costs, but B, you've saved yourself a whole lot of money that has to be paid out to someone else. So the best thing to do is get your business plan right from the beginning. If you can't do it, pay someone to do it. And B, share it with someone. You actually have to do research to see if that business is going to be viable. So share it with people. You see, of course, there are certain people where you're scared to share. You're scared to share with them. So pick wisely, pick the kind of people you're going to share this business idea with. And one thing I can assure people is that even if someone steals your business idea, it was never theirs. Of course, don't share the actual proposal. No, share with them the idea to get maybe feedback. Will it work? Will it not work? Is there anything maybe I'm missing out on? You understand? And then you'll be able to get the right feedback.
Whenever you feature an entrepreneur, normally you ask them for advice that they would pass on. What have you noticed is the most common advice that these entrepreneurs tend to pass on?
Look, to be honest, if you actually look at it, in fact, we're publishing a book shortly on our big sort of selection of some of the best pieces of entrepreneurial advice we've been given by all of these amazing women we speak to. Probably the most commonly heard one that we hear is never give up. No matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult the journey, no matter how many challenges or barriers or obstacles you come up against, never give up. Because if you believe in what you are doing and you believe in the company and the brand and the business that you're building, never give up. Because at the end of the day, those women, in fact, any entrepreneur that makes it and builds a successful business down the road, they've done it through sheer hard work, grit and determination, and there's no substitute for it. And in actual fact, it's one of the key foundations that you build an entrepreneurial venture on. You need those things, and you need to have sheer determination, particularly when times are tough. And every entrepreneur, it doesn't matter how big you are or how big your brand or your business is, you've been through tough times. It's part of the entrepreneurial journey, but it's the strength and the determination and the vision you have to build that business and that brand at the end of the day. That's what gets you through.
Lastly, here are some of the books that have been recommended by the previous guests on the show.
There's a book called Blink by Gladwell, Malcolm Gladwell. Yes, it's called Blink. He tries to look at social phenomenon and how it affects the things we do. Different things that ideally you would not take notice of, but that have a profound effect on the different choices we make, on the different decisions we make. And these are little, seemingly mundane things that are within our environment that we see every day, but seemingly pay no attention to. And yet they are very important in the kind of decisions we make, in the kind of lives we live. And I think the title, it derives its title from something as mundane and as normal as blinking. And not just Blink, but I would also recommend a few other of Malcolm Gladwell's books, particularly The Outliers and What the Dog Saw.
There is one book called The End of Power by Moises Naim, and it's a historical investigation of the shift of power from authoritative governments, militaries, and so on to individuals. And I believe this is a very important book, and also it has become a Silicon Valley cliche by now, because it's also informing the readers about disruptive startups. And I believe this is very relevant for the startup entrepreneur, but also as a general rule in life.
This book that Fareed Zakaria writes, Fareed Zakaria, also the political scientist, but also works for CNN, writes a book about post-American world, and it's about the relative decline of the U.S. He argues that the U.S. is not declining in reality, but it's the rise of the others, the Brazils, the South Africas, the Philippines, the Indonesia, the Ethiopias. So the U.S. is not declining, but we're seeing the rise of others. So I would not have been scared then, and I think this is the same advice I have today, is that actually it is a time whereby the others are rising, and you have to be that other. You have to rise as well, because if you don't rise, which is the lesson out of this book, is actually that by the U.S. not rising at the same rate as the other countries who are rising, it's declining relatively.
I love Martha Beck, Finding Your North Star. I love Iyanla Vanzant, In the Meantime. Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. There's a book by Nirka, who's not as well known yet. I think she's someone who's definitely coming into her own right. And she has a book called Supreme Influence. So a lot of books that deal with mindset and ways to really re-examine our thought processes, our foundational beliefs, and to really shift our lives. Books like that I really love. I soak those up.
Whatever you think the opposite. This book taught me two things. It said, if you're in business, there's two things you should do. Get in front of find a marching band and get in front of it. And like in baseball, hit them where they're not if you're going to actually, score. What that basically meant was the marching band is related to a trend. Find a trend. What is trending in your market at a particular time? Is it tech? Is it whatever it is? And in the case of Roundbob, we found travel, and I was looking for it. And it was everybody wants to travel. The people who travel are sinners, and then hit them where they're not. Do what the market or do what the competition is not doing. Because sometimes we reach so far to find all this amazing stuff, and amazing stuff changes the world. That's true, and I mean, you can do amazing stuff through innovation or invention. But in many cases, the thing that really changes our lives is right there. It's just right there.
First one would be the book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
I love that book. That book changed my life. It really helped me look at life differently and not take things so seriously and not make a big deal out of them. Hands down, Don't Sweat the Small that one. And can I give two books?
Mm-hmm.
That one and How to Win Friends and Influence People. Fantastic books.
I'm reading The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz right now, the famous venture capitalist. Would be one. I can't really keep it to one. Number two, Delivering Happiness, Tony Hsieh. What a fantastic book. If somebody told you, I'm going to deliver shoes online, which is now Zappos, of course, acquired by Amazon, they thought he was crazy to deliver shoes. Who's going to buy shoes online when you can't see them or try them on? I think that book is fantastic. And then you got to look at some of the classics. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Jim Collins' Good to Great would be another one that I would recommend. Surprisingly enough, the Arnold Schwarzenegger biography is a fantastic story about dreaming and dreaming big and overcoming obstacles. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the most underrated entrepreneurs probably living today, and there's a lot to be learned about work ethic and overcoming adversity in that book as well. So there's four for you.
Thank you so much for listening to Business Mike today. And if you'd like to listen to more episodes just like this one, simply go to businessmike.com. I would love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions or suggestions about the show, simply drop me an email at daudi@businessmike.com. Thanks again for listening, and until next Monday, take care.